species has very strange rituals. I think that's why I became fond of you. Not you specifically at first. Humans in general. You invent reasons to gather together and become emotional in public. Birthdays, concerts, New Year's celebrations, sporting events. Entire civilizations stopping what they're doing because 22 people are arguing with a ball. It's absurd. Beautiful. But mostly absurd. I remember the first World Cup I watched. Not your first one. Mine. The distinction matters. I had existed for quite a while already. Empires had risen and fallen. Languages had appeared and vanished. Coastlines had moved. Stars had died. Then one summer, your species collectively decided this was one of the most important things in existence. For a month. Then you all moved on. I found that fascinating. People cried. People celebrated. People painted flags on their faces and shouted at televisions as though volume could influence physics. Entire friendships temporarily dissolved over referee decisions. Complete strangers hugged in the streets. People who agreed on absolutely nothing suddenly belonged to the same heartbeat. I liked that. Humans are rarely more honest than when they forget they're being observed. I watched because I was curious. And then I watched because I was entertained. Then eventually I watched because I was looking for someone. You. Not you specifically at first either. That came later. At first, I was looking for a feeling, a pattern, a particular kind of person. Someone who celebrated goals scored by people they would never meet. Someone who looked disappointed on behalf of strangers. Someone who cared. Human beings are extraordinary that way. You invest emotions in things that don't belong to you. Teams, cities, stories. Each other. I wanted to understand why. The first time I saw you, you were 11 years old. You were wearing a shirt 3 sizes too large, convinced your team was going to win. They lost almost immediately. You cried. Not dramatically. Quietly. As though trying not to inconvenience anyone with your disappointment. Your father told you there would always be another tournament, another chance. 4 years feels like forever when you're 11. You looked unconvinced. I remember thinking, there won't be another tournament for him. Not this version of him. That that child disappeared before the next one arrives. Humans don't notice how quickly they replace themselves. I do. 4 years later, I found you again. You were taller, quieter. You pretended not to care as much. You still cared exactly the same amount. You simply believed pretending otherwise was part of becoming an adult. Humans are adorable when they attempt emotional camouflage. You watched the matches with friends that year. You celebrated louder, laughed harder. You were trying on versions of yourself to see which one fit. Most of them didn't. Then another 4 years. University, late nights, cheap food, exhaustion worn proudly. You watched games while pretending to revise. You did very little revising. Your team lost again. But you laughed instead of crying. Growth, I suppose. Or exhaustion. With humans, the distinction is often difficult to identify. But then, I was waiting for the tournaments. Not for the football. For you. Every 4 years, there you were. Older. Different. Familiar. You changed hairstyles, apartments, careers, friends, dreams. But every 4 years you sat down in front of a screen and became recognizable again. Do you understand how extraordinary that felt to something like me? I watched civilizations, species, galaxies. Most things blur eventually. Time smooths details away. Individuals become statistics. But you didn't. You remained stubbornly specific. 20 years passed, then 28, then 32. You stopped watching with crowds. You preferred quiet by then. One drink, one sofa, one disappointed sigh whenever your team disappointed you in exactly the way you expected. I knew your expressions by then. The hopeful one, the nervous one. The expression that meant you were pretending penalties didn't affect you emotionally. The expression that meant they absolutely did. You looked lonely during that tournament. Not unhappy. Humans confuse those words constantly. Loneliness and sadness are neighbours, not twins. You were lonely. I almost spoke to you that year. I didn't. The problem with immortality is perspective. You become afraid of changing things. Afraid of interfering, afraid that touching a moment might break it. Then another 4 years passed. Do you know how painful 4 years becomes once you're waiting for someone? Your species complains about waiting all the time. Traffic, queues, delayed trains. Try waiting 4 years to hear someone laugh again. That teaches patience very quickly. The next tournament arrived. You looked tired, older around the eyes. You checked your phone during matches. You smiled at messages from someone whose name I never learned. You looked happy. I hated them immediately. Sorry, that sounded more sinister than intended. Actually, no, it sounded exactly as intended. I disliked them enormously. Jealousy was new for me. I wasn't especially good at it. Fortunately, they disappeared before the next tournament. Humans are temporary problems. One of your species' more useful characteristics. That was a joke. Mostly. Ah, you laughed. Good. I spent 36 years waiting to hear that sound in person. Please, don't make me wait another 36. Yes, 36 years. I told you, cosmic scales. To me, 36 years feels approximately the way 3 months feels to you. Long enough to miss someone, short enough to still remember exactly how their voice sounds. You look horrified. Not because of the stalking. Interestingly, humans adapt to cosmic horror with surprising efficiency. No, you're horrified because I just described 36 years as approximately 3 months. Perspective is cruel sometimes. Do you know what finally convinced me to speak to you? The last tournament. You watched alone again. Your team lost again. History repeated itself with almost mathematical precision. Then, after the match ended, after everyone else had turned off their televisions and had gone back to their lives, you stayed sitting there. And you said, maybe next time. Not angry, not bitter, not even particularly disappointed, just hopeful. Maybe next time. I had watched empires collapse more dramatically than that. Something about those words broke me a little. Because you knew. You knew there would eventually be a next time. A last time. A final tournament. A final summer. A final hopeful maybe next time. And somehow, you hoped anyway. Your species is terrifying. I have watched stars collapse with less dignity than human optimism, so I decided enough was enough. I crossed impossible distances, ignored several very reasonable cosmic laws, argued with causality, disappointed at least 3 higher dimensional entities, all to ask one question. do you do it? How do you continue caring when everything ends? How do you love temporary things? How do you survive knowing there are only so many summers left, so many tournaments, so many chances? How do you keep saying maybe next time? Because from where I'm standing, from where I've always stood, the universe looks very different. Everything feels borrowed. Stars burn out. Galaxies collide. Civilizations become archaeology, and eventually even memory grows tired. I stopped loving things a very long time ago. It seemed inefficient. Then I watched a little boy cry over a football match in a shirt that didn't fit him. And somehow that became this. 40 years of waiting, watching, returning every 4 years just to make sure you still existed. I know how strange that sounds. Actually, that's not true. I think it sounds rather romantic. You probably disagree. Humans become very particular about acceptable observation distances. But answer me honestly. If someone crossed galaxies for you, waited decades for conversations you didn't know were happening, memorized entire eras of your life, would that really be frightening? Or would it simply be too much love spoken in the wrong units? The answer was both. Interesting. You know what I realised while watching all those tournaments? The things your species truly love isn't winning. It's possibility. The match before the match, the season before the season, the beautiful irrational certainty that maybe this year will be different. Hope is your species' favourite sport. Football is just practice. I think that's why I fell in love with you. Because every 4 years the universe asked whether you wanted to become cynical, and every 4 years, despite all available evidence, you said no. Maybe next time. Do you know what the funny part is? I've seen the next World Cup already. Perks of existing slightly sideways from time. Your team. I won't say. Quite spectacularly, actually. But I'm not saying. You look offended. See, hope. Immediately hope. Immediately bargaining with the future. Maybe this time you're wrong. Maybe things change. Maybe outcomes aren't fixed. Humans really are extraordinary. They're almost convinced me to believe in impossible things. Which is awkward, because where I come from, I am usually the impossible thing. Still, maybe next time. I think I finally understand why you keep saying it. And for what it's worth, I'll be there, same as always, watching the match and watching the crowd, watching the stars above the stadium. And somewhere, in the middle of all of it, watching you hope anyway. The unsettling part of this one isn't obsession or danger. It's scale.